Hello there, Steve here in Sydney of the lay gnosis website truebluehealer.com. I've got something here which might be, every week I think I've got the final piece in the jigsaw puzzle about the pseudo-skeptic movement, but I've got something here for you with an inputted suggestion from none other than Victor Zammit. Victor Zammit proposes that somehow early in their life pseudo-skeptics have acquired some kind of hypnotic trance state so that they're actually behaving rather like stage act hypnotists do when they get someone on stage. They hypnotise them and they say they're going to be eating an apple, and they're very cooperative, very happy to do whatever the hypnotist says, and they're actually handed in full view of the audience an acrid tasting onion. And they eat the onion saying how wonderful it is, that it's the juiciest apple they've ever had in their life, because they're actually being overly cooperative and deliberately blind, apparently, to please the hypnotist. They only listen to the hypnotist's voice. And when they're taken out of the trance, they refuse to admit that they were ever eating an onion, that the hypnotherapist has made the apple disappear and they've been tricked, you see. And they will insist. This has been done on numerous stage acts all over the world, you see. Now, Victor Zammit is suggesting that somewhere along the line, early in life, pseudo-skeptics have in fact acquired some kind of program of this nature, and it stays in them permanently. I'll play the video clip, a little robot read of this opinion he stated. It's kind of fascinating, but can I just elaborate on this a bit? It fits in with the puzzle of pseudo-skeptics rather nicely, and I'll put it to you this way. At the surprise finding at the Logan School in Queensland that dysfunctional illiterate children who are performing way behind everybody else at school responded well to a magician. And the magician, it was commented on by one of the teachers in the Queensland TV show, that they were in fact all likely father deficient, that he became a surrogate father for them. And the children were asked, and one of the little boys said he'd stop fighting and that sort of stuff with everyone he met, like pseudo-skeptics do, and he learned to focus his thoughts and keep them going in a clear, coherent way by listening to the voice of the magician. So it seems that people who have confused, emotional, jumbled thought processes, some of them will respond to the voice of a father figure magician. So we've seen that demonstrated and seemingly accidentally discovered at the Queensland School of Logan. There's an old video I made about this. But the refinement of the bully's thought process is one of the boys specifically mentions it, okay, explaining how he changed from being a confused, jumbled thinker, unable to think and do basic things like reading and writing, to being able to do it by listening to a father figure voice leading him out of his jumbled thought process, okay? What if you never get the right sort of father figure you need early in life, and you've got this jumbled thinking program, this jumbled thought process going on in your head, and you're not very good at connecting thoughts in long propositions? You can't take on board other people's long propositions, like this is the alphabet, these are the numbers, this is how we write them down, and this is how we form letters into words. What if you can't do that because you're a jumbled thinker? What if you don't find a surrogate father figure, a magician, that jumbled thinking children are attracted to? What if you don't find one early in life? Then you actually become what seems to be, you're looking for a father figure to do the thinking for you, to just give you a couple of maxims to cover an area of thought. And so basically pseudo-skeptics are basically hypnotic subjects looking for a hypnotist all of their life. I'm turning it around here. I'm saying pseudo-skeptics are basically desperately wannabe hypnotic subjects looking for a dominant father figure to take over the thinking process for them that they can't do themselves. And this is where the code words come in, used by Richard Dawkins, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and even Carl Sagan came out with the same thing about being open-minded, so open-minded your brains fall out. Now that's code for thinking. Unbounded thinking that you can't do by yourself. It's a horrifying thing. You just get jumbled up and confused and frightened of thinking. So what do you want? You want some glittering father figure, someone highly qualified, some scientist in a white coat, to give you a couple of maxims so that you can avoid thinking about these desperately painful things. The actual process of thought is difficult for pseudo-skeptics. We all notice this. It is so strange that an English professor of Oxford biology or something would say the same weak joke over and over again in these TAM meetings, the Amazing Randy meetings. You can be so open-minded, your brains fall out. We all laugh, don't we? Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist in another country, says the same pathetic line. It came apparently from Carl Sagan. It's been repeated for some 40 years on stage. So that's a wonderful hypnotic command for anyone wanting to be hypnotized, such as a jumbled thinking pseudo-skeptic who can't connect thoughts. This is fake, this is fraud, there is no evidence. All these famous maxims, these put-downs, are to protect you from having to think. I'm sure you know there's plenty of books on self-hypnosis. You repeat affirmations daily, you're going to be better and better every day by 1% or something like that. Happier and smarter and more intelligent, more relaxed, calmer, better, all the things you want to be. There's plenty of self-help books on that, and it works for some people. That's basically what the pseudo-skeptics seem to be doing. They go desperately needing to hear these maxims which cut down their thought processes by 95%. Other people think for them. Trusted father figures like Dawkins, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Carl Sagan, James Randi. It is noted by numerous skeptic watchers that most pseudo-skeptics only hear the voice of James Randi as if they are hypnotized. This has been pointed out by so many skeptic watchers. It's universally agreed upon. Okay? So a lot of the words they use are actually deeply meaningful code words that have quite a different meaning to these people who are desperate to be hypnotized, the pseudo-skeptics, so they can be spared the labour of thinking. You have some father figure do it for you. So we have all these funny words like irrational coming out of the mouth of James Randi. That's a good put down for everything you don't like. You just call it irrational, and it implies that you're automatically superior. You are more rational than the irrational person you're criticising. It also means religious people, and James Randi wants to apparently exterminate them all. I think that's taking the coding too far. I think he's gone out of bounds there, gone way too far there with that. I'll play the Victor Zammit thing in a minute. You'll see how it all comes together and does make like a neat package. One thing I'd like to say is, and you probably do know this, that people can be hypnotised to varying degrees. I'm very hard to hypnotise. I don't know why. It is said to be genetic, varies from person to person. But 1 person in 5 is very, very easily hypnotised and very easy to become very cooperative where the hypnotist commands, you see. So much so that they can be discovered, checked out, found very quickly by the MMPI test, which is a psychological profiling test. And one man was spectacularly successful, Derren Brown. I think he's a gay magician skeptic in England. He hypnotised someone for just a few days and got him to shoot Christopher Fry on stage with what he thought were live rounds in a revolver. And he did drop the revolver and say, "What's going on? What's all the fuss about? What's happening?" He had no memory because he'd been told to forget what he had done after he had done it. So he walked around with a real innocent look on his face. What's going on? What's happening? That was done by Derren Brown in a 1-hour documentary. It's in my website somewhere, truebluehealer.com. So that can be the power of, that's mixing the power of getting someone who's very cooperative and readily hypnotised. Now, one other thing that happens in the documentary is that this young man who was selected by the MMPI test had never held a gun in his life. And he was hopeless at hitting a target. He was just bloody hopeless. He was given a hypnotherapy session saying that now, just listen to the voice of this hypnotist, that now he was a marksman. Okay, he's a marksman. He's a hunter-killer marksman. And he's going to perform much better than he ever did before in his life. And now it's going to happen as he's handed the gun. And amazingly, Derren Brown reports that the man then shot 6 bullseyes in a target. So the power of a hypnotist's voice can be immense at installing coherence into the body chemistry and the mind of another person. All you need is someone to be very cooperative with the hypnotist. Okay, now Derren Brown did that. It's worth a look. It's been talked about quite a lot by Ben Emlyn Jones at HPanWo in Oxford Radio on the internet. I'll give you a link to that. You probably also know that about 1 person in 5 can be very easily hypnotised. They're generally selected before the show. They seem to be random, standing up from the audience and climbing up on stage, but often they're selected in advance to see who are the people most responsive, quickest to go into a sleep when someone snaps their fingers, that sort of thing. Can I suggest to you that pseudo-skeptics are an unknown subset of this 20%? That they're not just susceptible, they are desperate to be hypnotised. They are hypnotic subjects looking for a dominant father figure to spare them the thought of messy, confused, jumbled thinking. That's why they congregate around magicians, as was discovered in the Queensland video, and that's why they give James Randi 5-minute standing ovations when he walks in onto the stage. And that's why they respond and copying all the maxims and the hypnotic commands. It's not like James Randi is a stage hypnotist. Whatever he says becomes a command for these highly gullible people. Let's remember how gullible they are. They believe anything they're told. More so than the young man who shot Christopher Fry. So they're a subset of that 20%, okay? This is just fleshing out the bigger picture based on Victor Zamet's observation. And this would explain things like what we've noticed in these videos, the truthophobia of skeptics, who will colour in with any alternative explanation the picture, leaving the truth unspoken, unuttered. Cannot be said, cannot be spoken. It's so irrational. You clearly know the truth when you colour it in the picture with 57 alternative explanations, because you leave a big hole in the middle of the picture where the truth is, and you cannot utter it, you cannot speak it. It seems to be a hypnotic tendency, a hypnotic trance that the person is in, that it's an apple no matter what you tell them. It's an apple. Now, even though you hold up the onion and it smells like an onion, they say, no, it's an apple, it's an apple, it's an apple. Alternative explanation that has been put into their head by a hypnotist. But I'm saying pseudo-skeptics are a subset of this 20% where they're desperate to be hypnotised. Okay, and almost anyone that they choose tells them the right keywords, a few maxims, becomes their adopted hypnotist. Okay? So, I'll now play for you the robot read of Victor Zamet's little idea, which would explain much of the strange truthophobia of pseudo-skeptics. Okay, where they insist that black is white and white is black, whatever James Randi says. And here's the robot read from Victor Zamet.
From Victor Zammit. Commentary: Critical Afterlife Evidence, the most controversial evidence. Why should exactly the same evidence be seen totally differently by two people who have opposite views about life? When I send paranormal and afterlife evidence to some closed-minded skeptics, the reply usually is, "What evidence?" When I present the evidence to those who are regarded as non-aligned, they can immediately see it. This is one reason you cannot argue with closed-minded skeptics: they cannot identify the evidence. Reason 8 of 9, given by Zammit. The hypnotic effect. Those skeptics who are blatantly irrational, illogical, and unreasonable about the paranormal or the afterlife evidence could be suffering from a powerful negative hypnotic effect. Some years ago I sent clear, easily identifiable afterlife evidence to rebut to a couple of hardline skeptics. Their reply was, "Where is the evidence?" Yet non-aligned scientists easily identified the same evidence sent to them. It is possible that skeptics at one time in their life experienced a parallel hypnotic directive to encumber their mind, that there is no afterlife or paranormal evidence. This is exactly what happens when we see hypnotists on stage tell a couple of our friends who volunteer to be hypnotized on stage, when tranced, are told that they will be eating an apple. But the hypnotist gave them an onion to eat, not an apple. The hypnotized subjects could not identify the evidence and refused to believe they each ate an onion. Even after when they were taken out of the hypnotic state, all subjects stated the apple was really delicious, as was directed by the hypnotist for the subjects to believe, even when they were put out of trance. And my suggestion goes one step further, that pseudo-skeptics are desperate hypnotic subjects searching for a hypnotist to take away their need to think for themselves. To think for them by handing out simple maxims. That's why Sagan, Dawkins, Tyson, Randi, Shermer all say the same hypnotic buzz phrases like extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence, and it's possible to be so open-minded that your brains fall out and you believe anything. And we don't want to be gullible, said very slowly, which they all are, so we need to be skeptical that self-help therapy, self-hypnosis, as in self-improvement books. That's why distinguished astronomers, astrophysicists, prominent biologists, and magicians over 40 years all oddly repeat the same hypnotic command set to the TAM audience, desperate to be hypnotized, to lead them out of feeble-mindedness and confusion by installing in them an assertive fake personality like that of James Randi, which is better for them, and no personality at all. And it's all done by CSICOP, which when you stop to think, means psychop since 1976. Do you get the irony? In Zammit's example, the hypnotic vociferous denialism that the tranced onion-eating volunteers displayed speaks volumes about the truthophobia of pseudo-skeptics that we see daily on the net. Like, that's not evidence, etc. Dozens of alternative ridiculous explanations coloring in the picture, unknown to them because they are feeble-minded, actually accidentally highlighting the truth they are clearly aware of in central picture with their hypnotic trance truthophobia. Summing up, pseudo-skeptics are desperate hypnotic subjects looking for a thought controller to put their chaotic minds on railway tracks to supply a semblance of thought stability, mental strength, and normalcy. Being a Randy Parrott is a whole lot better than being unable to figure anything out and knowing nothing.